The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the first session of a series of 4 called VS CodeAL extensions. I'm very curious myself, although I'm part of it, I've organized it, whatever. But as I wrote in the newsletter, and I also told to the presenters that it's also a bit an egoistic action because we will present 12 VS CodeAL extensions, and I must say some I'm using a small part of, some I'm a little bit bigger part of it. Some, I must admit, I haven't been using at all. So I'm very curious on what we're going to see and what I can learn from it. Today, I'll welcome Waldemar, Andrzej, and David. They will present their extension, let's say the 3 first heroes of this series that have put a lot of time in building this extension. You might recall that David also did 2 presentations previously on how to build a VS Code extension. And David said that he owed a lot to Andrzej being very helpful to him, and I understood also to many others. So welcome to the 3 of you. I'm very glad that you agreed to present this. We have a challenge because it's 3 presentations in this 1 hour, and yes, we'll keep an eye on time so that everybody gets a fair portion of this hour. You might see right on the right button that there is written Activate Windows. This is the darn thing with Windows. If you use Hibernate, at least that's what I'm experiencing, that all of a sudden this pops up. I'll try to get rid of it in the final recording. Welcome everybody. This is part, as I said, of a series. As you can see, this is a list alphabetically ordered, and this is the list, let's say, organized the way we're going to run through the 4 sessions today, next week, Tuesday, then we skip a week. Then on the, if I'm right, the 15th of June and the 22nd of June, session 3 and 4. Today, Waldemar, Andrzej, and David, and then Bart, Eric, and Rasmus in the 2nd session, James, Martin, and me in the 3rd, and Rob and Johannes and Christoph in the 4th session. As always, a short resume or introduction to the housekeeping rules. Your microphone is muted. That doesn't mean that you're not welcome to pose questions, but for that we use the GoToWebinar question window. So use that. I'm your moderator, Luc van Vugt, and I will pick up the question as we have a clear division of, let's say, 3 portions for every presentation. I will pick up the questions and pose them to the presenter after his approximately 15 or 20 minutes. Yeah. So feel free to put it in, and I will pick it up. The recording will probably be again tonight on YouTube, and feel free to use it to your avail. And if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, use this URL to get subscribed to it, or get anybody of your colleagues, team, whatever, subscribe to it. So what is upcoming at the moment, it's those 3 sessions that are left after this first one of the series on VS CodeAL extensions on the 1st of June, the 15th, and the 22nd. I'm working on some other presentations, might be in July, might push it to, let's say, after summer season on this part of the world. As always, we're continuously looking for speakers and topics. Feel free to step in whatever idea you have, to present you on your own, or to ask, could this be, paid attention to. And before I'm going to hand off to Waldemar, our thanks as always to Feldhoff being our sponsor, enabling us to use GoToWebinar for our webinars. So it's time to hand over to Waldemar. I'm going to make you presenter. So feel free to share your screen and pick up your part of the presentation.
Thank you, Luc.
I'm seeing him. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
I can see it and I can hear you. So for me, it's okay.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I will present to you my VS Code extension AL Navigator. If you ask yourself right now why there's a big alpaca on my first slide, then the answer is pretty simple. It is the icon of my extension AL Navigator. My name is Waldemar Brakowski, and I am from Germany, currently based in Berlin. I am 27 years old and work for the German Microsoft solution provider Cosmo Consult. From time to time, I blog about Business Central related topics on my blog navinsights.net. And this is also the place where you can find more detailed information about my extension whenever there's something new that I implement in the extension. Okay, so the AL Navigator has 3 features. The first one is that it provides you with useful shortcuts to navigate in your files. This was the first feature that I implemented and is the reason for the name AL Navigator. The second feature is a pretty new one. I just implemented it in the last 2 weeks. You can use it to see translations of Microsoft terms like field names in Visual Studio Code. And the third feature is by far the biggest one and the main feature of the extension. It lets you create variables and parameters in a different way to save you time. So now I will move to the demo. Yeah, let's start with the first part, the shortcuts. So the AL Navigator comes with 6 shortcuts that you can use to navigate in your files. You can find all of them if you open the command palette in VS Code and type in AL Navigator. So the first one that we will see is end of local variables. Now, what does that do? It puts your cursor to the end of your local variables section. In this case, I'm in the onRun trigger. And let's say I'm somewhere here in the code and I want to go to the end of my local variables. I can use that and it will quickly put my cursor here so I can create new variables that I want to create. You have the same function for the end of the global variable section. So if you type in AL Navigator, end of globals, it will bring you here, which is especially useful if you have really big AL files. Of course, this can be used in every object, not only in code units. So let's go to the next shortcut that we have. Now, when I opened a report the first time in AL, I noticed that there's a lot of code and it's pretty difficult to add new columns to the data set. That's when I decided to create a new shortcut that will jump through all of these data items so I can find the places where I want to put new columns faster. I will use this so that you know what I'm talking about. Next data item starting from top. Now I will use the shortcut instead, and this will put my cursor always to the next data item. You can not only use this shortcuts to jump through the data items starting from the top, but also from the bottom. So if I open the command palette again and say, okay, next data item starting from bottom, it will start here and then go through the data items step by step. Then in this case, we have a page. And I implemented a shortcut where you can go to the page actions directly. So this is often the case that this is useful for myself. So this is really a good way to find the action that you are looking for. So you can use the shortcut again, and it will then jump through all of your actions. Now let's come to the last shortcut that we have that you can use in tables. It's pretty similar to a shortcut that you had in Seaside. And it's called AL Navigator Keys. and brings you directly to your keys section. Now, this is the first part of the features. Let's come to the second part, which is the translation functionality. Sometimes it can be useful for non-native English-speaking people to see the translation of some Microsoft terms because they just don't understand what the original English name means. This is where my new feature comes into play. You can just select, for example, this field name document type, open the command palette and say, okay, AL Navigator, show me the Microsoft translation. Translate from English to the target language. It will ask you for the string to be translated. In this case, because I already highlighted it, it's in here, so I can just press enter. And then you will see the translation in this little information message. Now, the same, you can also use the function to do it in the other direction, to translate from your target language back to English. But because we don't have that much time, I won't do that now. Also, you can use another command called Open Microsoft Translation to show the source of the translation in your Microsoft browser. Now, if I execute this, it's the same as before. I can type in my translation string, and it will then open a Microsoft page where I can see the translations. In this case, it's document type, and in German, it's Belegart. Now, of course, you don't have to translate it to German. You can change that language, which you can easily do by using this little wheel here. Go to your settings. Then, depending on what you want to change, user or workspace settings, you go to the AL Navigator configuration and change your translation target language. Now let's come to the last part of the features, which is the biggest part and the part that I personally like the most and use the most. It's the possibility to create variables and parameters in a different way. Like usually when you want to use a variable inside a procedure, you would have to declare that variable before you can use it. Now, in this case, I created an item variable and can then go ahead and use it in my procedure. But I find this to be a bit annoying because every time I want to create a new variable or use a new variable, I have to go back here, you type in the variable declaration and then go back to the code where I can then use it. So I decided to create a code action. Like when you hover over this, you can see the name item does not exist in the current context. This is the compiler information. And I can use this light bulb, which indicates a code action, and then just say add local variable item. Because most of the times when people name their variable item, then it's pretty clear that they want to create a record of the table item and then use that. So the extension understands that, and you can simply create it like this. Now, you can also create global variables. In this case, I created a variable of the sales header as a global variable, or you can create the same as a parameter. Now, this adding parameter functionality is actually a suggestion from David, so thanks to him. The extension does not only understand the long version of the names, but also abbreviated variable names. For example, GL setup is the abbreviation for general ledger setup, and this can also be recognized. And if you want to create temporary records, you just type in temp in front of the variable name, and then this will be created as a temporary record. Now, you can use this for pretty much every complex object type, like code units, tables, pages, queries, whatever you want. But you can also use it for simple data types, for example, for Booleans. Now, if you use this code action, Of course, the extension does not know that you want to create a Boolean, and it will ask you to select the type of the variable that you want to create. So in this case, I just type in Boolean, and this Boolean is then created for me. Also, the extension can recognize some frequently used variable names. For example, in Business Central context, entry number is usually an integer, item number is code 20, so you don't even have to select the data type for this because it can understand it. Now let's come to the last thing that you can use. Sometimes when I don't know the exact table name, I can just use a placeholder. Like in this case, I use the character X. Then I use the code action, select the variable type record, and then I can just type in the table name. In this case, I want to create an item ledger entry. Next, it will ask me to select the variable name that I want to have. Now I could stay with my character X, or I could say, okay, I want this to be named item ledger entry because that's the suggestion by Microsoft. And if I select this, it gets replaced by the variable name that I just selected. So this is sometimes for me a very handy way if I don't want to jump to my variable declaration and just want to stay where I am in that moment. That's it. I hope I was in time. And I will hand over to Andrzej.
It was perfect on time, but before Andrzej steps in, I don't see
Yes.
any questions popped up. It was a very, very clear demo, and I must say I had a couple of wow feelings like, oh, yeah, that's so handy to have. So indeed, I'm already pleased that I started this series, so I learned something of your extension, which I'm surely going to use. So thank you very much, Waldemar. Jeremiah.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
And Jeremiah responds, no question, but much appreciation. I think we're on the same side, Jeremy. So thank you very much, Waldemar. Nicely on time. So yes, please hand over to Andrzej.
Yes, I just did.
Okay. Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening to everybody. Thank you, Waldemar. It was great. Now it's time for me. So yeah, let's go. So I will be presenting my extension, which has quite a long name at this moment, which is AZ/AL Code Outline, just because I started with name AL Code Outline, and then the functionality just grow, and extension has now so many different things that Code Outline is no longer a good name for it. But I wanted to keep the old Code Outline in the name, so people that have it, they don't try to understand what this new extension is doing. It's still the same one. Okay, so let's start with the introduction. My name is Andrzej Zwierzchowski, but obviously with such a name in many countries, it's hard to pronounce that, especially in the UK when I currently live. So everybody in the company just calls me AZ, even if they are talking with customers, it's AZ will do this or that. Currently, my position is development standards lead at the NAV people. I'm responsible for our development standards. Also because I'm NAV and BC and .NET developer and JavaScript developer, sometimes I'm also doing some architecture, software solution architecture work, just on the technical side of some projects, from .NET projects, for example, or AL. One of the questions that Luc asked us to answer before we start presenting our solution was why we decided to do it. Just maybe if we say why, maybe we will encourage more people to try to also build another tools for the community. So the reasons why I created my extension, there were basically two reasons. One was to help AL developers to make it easier to move from CAL to AL for developers that were only using CAL when they lost a lot of visual part of the editor and they received just a text editor, and it was hard for some of the people to start. I also wanted to make development faster by introducing some wizards, some code generators, and the third thing that is linked with the previous one is to enforce good practice of some development standards, because if we can generate a bit more code that developers doesn't have to type it, then they won't be forgetting about putting something in the code. And the second reason is because I like it, because I always like to extend development tools, because I was playing with Visual Studio, big one, extending it, and I was also trying to extend old CAL development environment, because from NAV 2016, Microsoft introduced Visual Studio Editor inside, and with whole extensibility model inside. So you can find also on my GitHub that extension for old CAL development environment. And because another reason is because I can share it. Yeah, I like to develop, but just developing and not showing it to anybody sometimes you may feel like, no, it's waste of your time. You did something and nobody sees it. And it's also something different from daily work, from our BC or CAL or AL development. It's not database, it's oriented. It's just pure C# and TypeScript code and JavaScript. So that's why. And where to find it? The extension is available in Visual Studio Marketplace. And if you want to see source code, you can find it on my GitHub. There are two projects. One is the extension for Visual Studio Code, and second one is .NET language server that runs in the background, which is written in C#. That's why two repositories and two projects. So if you have any issues, then just put them to the first one, to the repository where the main extension is kept. Okay, so what it can do? I again split it into two parts: the main functionality and some additional that is less used for smaller things or used by just a few people. So the main functionality, and the one that I really like, and is AL Object Wizard, which allows you to create tables, pages, reports, queries, code units in a bit visual way. So you're not starting with empty file, or not starting with something from a snippet, but you can actually use your mouse or keyboard and decide how the object will look like. Another main functionality is CodeActions. Waldemar showed you some of his CodeActions. I also have a few CodeActions to add multiple fields, to sort procedures, fields, variables, and so on. I also have some code transformation commands where you can transform your code. For example, add application areas, add captions to the fields in whole your project by just calling one single command. I have also Action Images browser, where you can see all images that are available for you for your actions on pages. You can select the image, generate action, whole code of the action, and then paste it into your page. And the last bigger functionality, the main functionality, is a symbol browsers, where you can open the symbols from app file and see what's inside. Or you can use also symbol browsers to display all symbols available for you in your project. That's from the objects that you created, and also from the app files referenced by your solution. So those are the main areas, and the additional smaller part is symbols preview, which allows you to see the structure, just the symbols of one of the objects somewhere on the side on your UI when you are working on something else. A few custom editors for the settings, You can also view all the code analyzer rules if you want to see what is available, what you can do, what you can turn on and off. There is some syntax, document syntax visualizer. This is something for developers wanting to create their own code analyzers. This tool shows you the structure of your code, the way that AL compiler sees it, and the way which is used by code analyzers when they are running on your code. And two last things, small ones that I started the extension with them is just small outline panel with your tree structure of your symbols and some small code generators that can quickly generate objects from those symbols from this outline panel. For example, you select the table and generate page with all the fields for the table. So this was the old functionality that was there before I decided to create wizards. So that's the functionality. And let's go for some demo. So this is list of my extensions, and as you can see, I wanted to show you how my extension looks like in Visual Studio or in Visual Studio Marketplace. I have descriptions of whole functionality that is available. So if you want to know what is available, you can go here and just scroll down and see what you can use. Yeah, so I'm not going through it, but I just wanted to show that it is here. So let's go to the code. First thing that I wanted to show you is the wizard. So if I right-click in the Explorer, the first option that you can see in the context menu is New AL File Wizard, and this starts an object wizard that I implemented in my extension. So first, let's try to create a table. So it shows, it suggests you, the wizard suggests you the new object ID, and you can enter the object name. So let's create a train, and because I'm doing, let's say that I'm implementing for a SAS, let's add a suffix and create fields. So the name, number, data type will be code, and length 20, data classification, customer content. Next, let's add description, text, length 100. I can press F8 like in all CAL development environment to copy values from above. Yes, F8 and F2 to get description 2, F8, F8, and F8. And that's how my table should look like. So I can press finish. And what happens, it creates a table with my suffix here, but without suffix in the caption. And because I define my suffix in AppSource.json here. So it created a field with captions and with the data classifications. It's not adding the data classification to the header, but I can do it quickly. So that's my table. That's the first step that I would do when I starting developing something. Yeah, I will create a table. Later, I want to create a page. I want to create a list of trains. So what I can do, I can go again to Explorer, click New AL Wizard, and I can select a page. It again suggests me an object ID. I can enter object name, which will be train list, again with my suffix. So stable, I can start typing, and it will show me all tables available in the solution, in the symbols and in my code. So I will select my trains, change a type to a list, application area all, this is fine. I want to see it on the list in Business Central, so I'll select usage category list. And I want to create tooltips because Microsoft would like us to create tooltips for every field on our pages. And I can go to the next page. Now I can see available fields. They are sorted by name, but I can sort them by ID, because usually when you create the fields in a table, you are adding them in the order in which you would like later to see them on a page. And let's add just number and description to the list of available fields on the page. And I can press finish, and I have my page ready. Application area with caption, with all the fields that I created, and it also suggested tooltips for the page. So this is the wizard. Yeah, you can use them for other objects like queries, like reports, like XML ports. The next thing that you might want to use later are CodeActions. I created a few CodeActions that you can use. One of those CodeActions that I use frequently is add multiple fields. And this CodeAction is available on a group nodes, and it will add multiple fields just at the beginning of the group, but I can also do it on a field, and then new fields that I select will be added after that field. And this CodeAction is available on pages, on reports, on XML ports, on queries, so we can use it everywhere. So if I click here, I can add multiple fields, I can select it, and then again, I can sort it by name here or by ID. In this case, the order is the same, but you can also use those buttons here to change the order. So let's select description 2, and let's press OK. And my description 2 together with the tooltip has been added. Yeah? If I select 5 fields, all those 5 fields will be added here. So that's one of the code actions. There are other code actions like sort procedures, like I have a code unit here, like uncomment it. And other code actions like I can just sort procedures, and then it will sort them by name. You can make those. We can also change in the settings. You can make the VS Code to run those sort functions, sort code actions on document save. Then they won't be available here, but each time you save your file, it will automatically sort your functions or sort your variables depending on what you choose to sort. Yeah? Or you can, for example, another action that I have is create interface, and also I can create quickly interface from the code unit. So those are the code actions. Another functionality that I have are the code transformation commands. Because sometimes you want to transform your code. Like, for example, you have a code from CAL without captions because nobody cared about it. What you can do, you can go to your command palette and use and build table field captions to active editor or to every file in your solution. So I can select it, one of those, and it creates a caption. It's the same is for data classification, for application areas, for tooltips on pages. So there are commands that can do it for you. Yes, and another thing that I want to quickly show you are the action images. Imagine that I'm on a page. I would like to create a new actions, but I would like also to select one of the images. So I can go to show action images. It will show me all available images in AL. I can filter them. I can select this one. I can right click. I can copy it as promoted action. Then I can go to my page and define actions. And I can just paste it here. Save it. Obviously, I can add caption, add code that will do something. So this is the actions. And the last thing that I wanted to show you is the symbol browser. Like, for example, I can go to the base application. When I click on it, it shows me all the symbols from this ATP file. I can show them in a similar way that you can see in the CAL in Object Designer. Yeah, you can see pages, tables, or if you prefer, as you can filter them, or if you prefer, you can switch the view to tree view, and then the the page looks more like class browser in big Visual Studio, and you can click here on your objects, and you can see the symbols of the objects on the right side. And if you want, you can then right-click on it. You can go to definition, which will download the definition from the server and show you. Or if you can also extract the source code of the objects from ATP file if the publisher of the application set the show my code to true. If there's no code, or if the setting is set to false, it will not show the code, because I want to protect somebody's code. If somebody decided no, then no, I'm not showing it. So I can click, and that's how the GL account table definition looks like in the symbols. It's everything that is inside the APP file with code, with everything. So yeah, so that's the functionality that I wanted quickly to show you, and I'm slowly reaching the end of the time. So I think that's it. And look, you can.
Perfect, Andrzej. You said that you rehearsed it whispering for yourself and got the timing to 70 minutes. Wow, that's almost exact what
I know that I was probably a bit too fast, but I wanted just to show those part of the functionality.
Yeah, I've been using your wizard, but I'm also very happy with what you showed as other parts too. So this one is also a wow kind of experience. So thank you very much. No questions. There was a remark from Jeremy, but I'll pick that up at the end of this session. So Andrzej, thank you. You can hand over the presentation mode to David.
Okay.
Okay, I think you should be able to see my screen now.
Yes, and I can hear you also.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks Waldemar, thanks Andrzej. I am David Feldhoff. I'm also 27 years old and also living in Germany. And I am working at GWS in Münster, and I'm working in a team where we are working on app source apps. So always working with the latest and greatest PC versions. And yeah, that's a short introduction of myself. And about my extensions, it's called AL CodeActions, and yeah, that one was born in January 2020, and yeah, I try to keep the update. So if I make a bigger update, I try to post that on Twitter and yeah, inform the other colleagues of the Business Central community. But I also try to keep my changelog updated of the extension. I will show it to you later. Yeah, maybe just short, what's the goal of my extension? So I try to automate the small things we have to do quite often. So yeah, just to keep, if we're developing, just to keep the focus on the problem we want to solve. So keep our thoughts together and don't waste our attention, for example, to think, yeah, I have to create that parameter and it was code 20 or was it code 10 or something like that. And because of these all small helps, I try to reduce mistakes which can happen during development. So just as examples, so writing procedure declarations, I think there can always happen a small mistake. For example, I'm forgetting a var keyword for a temporary variable or something like that. Or yeah, maybe if I try to extract the procedure, I have to cut the code, create the new procedure declaration, paste the code, analyze where the variables are used, and so on and so forth. And I think these steps can be automated and help us doing development, keeping our thoughts on the problem we are trying to solve. Okay, yeah, and finally the question why for free. I think there are a lot of community members which help me a lot already with blogs or something like that. Or yeah, Andrzej helped me a lot for developing the extension, and I'm really helpful for that. And yeah, glad to yeah, be a part of it and can share my findings as well. Okay, now I will switch over to VS Code just to yeah, demo my extension. That's the extension we're talking about, AL CodeActions. And yeah, I have the same as Andrzej. I have a details tab where I try to have my features where I explain these. And at the bottom of the file, I have a demo section where you can see GIFs, how they are working as well. And as I explained, I have a change log which I try to keep up to date, what I've changed, and yeah, something like that. But okay, today I want to guide you through the features. And for that, I will jump into a code unit. So we see here, I have a procedure, I call a procedure code, which does not exist yet. And I hand over the customer and the temporary variable of a customer. And now I can, with a code action, which is called with control dot, I have a new code action which is called create procedure. And it knows it notes it's okay. I need a record of type customer, and the other one is a temporary one. So probably I should hand that one over as a var parameter. And by default, I have yeah, an error message. So yeah, that I have to implement that. And the cursor directly jumped to the body of the procedure so that I can yeah, start with the implementation. If I don't want to do that, I simply can jump with Alt and left key back to the procedure where I just created it. And so I think I'm pretty, yeah, can pretty easy navigate through so, yeah, these things. If I place in front of the procedure, which does not exist yet, the on keyword, so on do something, then I also am able to create publishers. So an integration event publisher or business event publisher. And if I create these, I am not jumping to the body as I can't implement as if, yeah, some code inside the publisher. So I just yeah, keep at the line. And yeah, what you may notice is that as handle parameter is now as well declared as a var parameter. And yeah, that's not hard coded in my extension. I created a setting for that we can create, yeah, that you can create your own string array, which should be var parameters. And you also could use a regular expression for that if you have always parameters which should be declared as a var parameter, for example. And yeah, so that's simply yeah, a string array. Okay. Furthermore, one more setting, you can specify where to place the new procedures. So currently, I always sort them by type and then by access modifier. So at the first stage, there are triggers or yeah, triggers, method, publisher, then subscriber, and so on. Access modifiers are public, internal, protected, and so I try to group them together a little bit. And yeah, then finally I group them by range, so it's just placed at the last possible position for local procedures, for example. But you can change that they are added by name, or it should always ask me where to place that. Yeah, just a hint here that that's possible. I won't show that due to time. Yeah, to limit of time. Okay. just another thing. I will comment this one out. And now let's imagine I think this if statement is not pretty easy to read. I want to extract that one. Then I can simply mark the lines I want to extract. And I commented this line out because now the isHandled is only used inside the selection, while the customer is also used in the code below. So my procedure code action extract to procedure analyzes these steps and do proceed, something like that. And it notices that the isHandled is only used inside the selection and takes the variable and moves it down to the new procedure. And the customer that is used outside the selection, that is passed as parameter. Furthermore, I notice that I have to return a Boolean as I'm inside an if statement. And so I directly created a return value, and it's directly assigned here in this case. So just by executing the code and giving it a clear name, I'm good with it. I don't have to modify this code, but now it's more easily to read. Okay. Whoops, that's something I did not want to show you. It should start with this one, customer.phone number. Okay, so it does not only work with if statement, of course, it works as well with other assignments. So here I hand over a customer and I want to return the phone number. In that case, it's a text 30. So I figure it out, and you don't have to think about that anymore. Another thing is now we have here some text, which is it's hard coded, and maybe you notice that there's a code corp from Microsoft that we should move these in a label, and for that there's a code action extract to label. Okay, so with that we are able to move our text constants into labels in an easy way. Okay. Furthermore, maybe we have a few lines of assignments. Now I have only one, but it works for multiple lines as well. But it could be that I say, why is it just an assignment? Maybe I want to refactor that to use a validate statement. So I go with it, and we are good to go. We don't assign the value anymore, but we are validating it. Okay. Another thing I want to show you, so that was mostly the code action part. I think I catched it up all. But I did a few features that are not the main topic of my extension, but I added it as well. So I hope I'm able to compile now. Just let me check. Yeah, looks good. Okay, so we have here a warning. You must specify open and close parentheses after insert. And for these kind of warnings, I created a command, fix cop warnings. Currently, I support this one, which fixes close parentheses. But there are also cops which I can fix automatically, which is that the variable must be used if it's assigned. So I have a variable that gets a value but is never used anymore afterwards. These kind of assignments are removed if it's possible. And yeah, maybe it makes sense that you first call this command and afterwards you call this command, because maybe the variables afterwards not used anymore at all, and then we are good to go to declare to remove variables that are declared but never used at all. Okay, so how does that work? That's only this call. I open a terminal and compile the app, and with that I get a complete list of error. Yeah, and I get the error log, and I know where which issue is, and then I can fix the lines. So here I get a message. Yeah, we successfully added one parenthesis, and yeah, with that you can fix your code. Another thing which I added is that I implemented a go-to-definition provider for built-in functions like insert, modify, or validate. And yeah, for example, the go-to-definition, I just hit F12, didn't make that clear. So the phone number has a onValidate trigger, so I directly jump to that. If there's no onValidate trigger, it would display me that there's no definition. The same works for the onInsert trigger. I can click go to definition. Now a little bit more more friendly for you what I'm doing. So I click on go to definition, and here I am on the onInsert trigger of customer DAL file. And maybe I want to see if I have something subscribed to that. So that's now another function. It's called find related. It only works for now with triggers on insert, modify, delete, and validate. And you have to place your cursor on the word, and then you can say find related event subscribers, for example, and then I see if there's any in my project, not in the dependencies, but I see, okay, in my project I have on before insert event, or I do have maybe related triggers in my table extension. And yeah, so with that I can see if I subscribe to that event as well. Yeah, these are some small side features, but yeah, that's, I think, pretty much what I'm able to do. Maybe one last step. What you see or saw in the insert on insert of the DAL file. This is a debug AL file, how Microsoft calls it. And maybe you noticed I'm not able to execute this one. That's because I am in a debug AL file. But if we are in a table extension, like this one, then I'm able to call that command here, and then I can say maybe show me where I make some calls on the customer, some insert calls, and yeah, with that I can a little bit search through my project. But yeah, as I said, that's not the main focus of my extension. I think I will put more invest in the CodeActions part. And yeah, maybe one last thing. I will just add a new variable. That's now, yeah, let's call it from the lab. On what I'm working currently. So if you create a procedure and or add a parameter, there's currently for Microsoft a message that there's no overload for method code that takes 3 arguments, and then I can say, yeah, that okay, that does not work. It seems, as I said, it's from the lab. But yeah, I tried to what I'm working on is that you can then add this variable to the procedure declaration. Or I think that's more the case in SaaS development, that you maybe want to add a new procedure, a new parameter to a public procedure, that we can create an overload of the method. So that there's an old procedure with 2 parameters, and that one is maybe deprecated or so, and we have a new procedure with 3 parameters. Yeah, that's something on what I'm working for now, but yeah. I think that's the web. That was all from my side.
Looks also very good, David, and also interesting to know. And of course, I think we know that you show that you're working on something next. I know Andrzej does, and Waldemar also does, but it's also nice to see that you're thinking of new things to come. And yes, great additions. And as you said, small ones you started to pick up, and meanwhile, well, very powerful ones. And for me, again, like the other 2 presentations, I'm using your tool too, but there are a couple of things I hadn't used so far. So you fulfilled my goal. I know more about all the 3 extensions that I knew that I knew before we started this session. So thank you very much, David. I'm going to pick up presentation mode, and I'm going to share my screen because we're getting to the end. There are no questions at this moment. There was a remark from Jeremy, and I think I'll handle it this way. But this is the one that Martin will show later. As he posed, is there any way people can offer support or where to offer feedback? Well, of course, you can always offer support. I don't know if Waldemar, Andrzej, or David would like your help or whatever. That's not up to me. But surely, as you know, with any extension here, if you click on this one, the bar there, you get to the Visual Studio Marketplace, and here, for all 3 of the ones that have been shown today, I think for all the ones we will be showing, all the sessions, you can go through this link to the repo, the GitHub repo, and then log an issue here. So any feedback you want to give is always welcome. I just showed you for the AL Navigator, but the same applies to the AZ tool, the long name of Andrzej, and the AL CodeActions from David, and any other of the AL VS Code extension. So, of course, give feedback, and like Waldemar said about his extension, that adding a thing was based on the idea from David. I know that people hand off ideas to each other through, well, maybe talking, but often also through reporting, recording an issue here, whether it's a real issue in the sense of a real issue, a bug issue, or whether it's something that could, make it even more powerful. So be welcome to do that. We're almost at the hour. So thank you very much, guys. I'm very pleased that you wanted to do this, and a big compliment for the timing, because it fits exactly in the hour. I think it was loud and clear. For me, it was surely. I hope it was also for the people that attended. So we're going to close down. Could I ask you to stay a little bit, that we can have a short resume of what we did? But thank you to everybody for being here. Have a good day, a good evening, good afternoon, and hope to see you next week. Thank you very much.